Okay, I think we should be live right now.
Yep.
No? Um, just everybody who's watching or catching this later, welcome to the FB live stream of 032 Conversations. You can listen to this podcast eventually on 032.com. If you head over now, there's over 100 interviews on the site. So feel free to listen. In today's show, I'd like to welcome Trev. Trev is a 19-year-old, Trev Sederiosa.
Yep.
Trev is a 19-year-old R&B and hip-hop artist who started creating music in the year 2017 with his first song Purple Dreams. It's on Spotify with over 62,000 streams. He's had multiple events under his belt along with a number of radio guestings. Trev has also had his first music video released on YouTube for his song Say It, which premiered on Mix on the same
Mhm.
day.
All
What's
right.
up,
So
Trev?
thank you for that introduction, Carlo. And I'm all good.
Yeah, man. I asked. I say this now like every podcast. I ask them, "How are you?" Because
Yep.
like people have been affected by this pandemic in many
Uh-huh.
ways. So how are you, man?
Like honestly, it's considering the situation right now, I'm doing pretty good for myself. And yeah, that's all I can say about it.
Oh yeah, okay. What's naman like kanang you don't have to go out or anything. You're just I think you mentioned that you've been like you just stay home for work, that sort of thing.
hmm Yep, I've actually been indoors for the past 3 months.
Oh yeah, you're not tired, by? I mean, I can't stand it. Like I am.
It gets tiring, just seeing the same environment and looking at the same screen.
Mol Molage. I thought like a good place to start would be because you
hmm
mentioned that you work in where do you work? Where do you work?
I work at Groundwork PR. That's an Australian-based music PR company.
So
hmm
I assume that you have like some some sense of what a lot of musicians or artists are going through right now. No, can you talk about that a little bit just to
Yeah,
maybe give me a sense of what you're thinking
actually,
about?
looking at the Australian music scene, Australia has handled the pandemic very well, and they're currently doing events right now. I just looked at,
Really?
yeah, it's they're doing public gatherings, and I'm very surprised to see that as compared to the Philippines, where we're still in lockdown. So
Yeah.
yeah, musicians there are doing a much are having a better time compared to the musicians here.
Wait, so is it like back to normal there? Like in a sense because like right here
hmm
I guess if I mean I'm sure people know but there's no live events. You can't go to a gig to a club and then that has changed a lot of like how musicians have been releasing their music
hmm
and because for me anyway when I was playing music a big part of being a musician or an artist was really the live gigs and right now here in the Philippines and in many places all over the world, that's just non-existent right now.
Yep.
In
Actually,
Australia,
they have different stages of like after what do you call it? Like the after lockdown. Like I read it on an Instagram post last yesterday, but I just forgot the name.
oops.
But okay, is it still good?
Yeah, wait, you got cut off a little bit, but you're back. What's up?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I was reading an Instagram post in Australia yesterday, and they have different stages of recovering from the lockdown. And from those stages, there are a set number of people allowed in an event. So I think now, the last time I checked, it was 100 people allowed. So that's actually a very good number for an event compared here that we're just not allowed to have an event.
Here, like there's like photos circulating online of just people huddled in a circle, and it's big news.
Yep.
I mean,
There there I saw people just sharing in their stories that, oh, we're in a club, we're having events. I'm like, okay, lucky you guys.
really, I feel
Yeah.
like I don't know. Would you know ba? Like, kanang, what is it there now in Australia? Like, I know that in New Zealand, at some point, they reached zero cases. Of course, New Zealand and Australia are two different
Mhm.
things, but they're near each other. So we're
They're
gonna.
near each other, and they've handled the pandemic very well. So I wouldn't know what the number of cases are, but I do know it's in a very low number compared to our state, sadly.
Mm.
Hmm.
So sila, they're just back to normal in terms
Not
of like in
it's
terms of the music. Let's say, like in terms of like artists, musicians, bands.
it's not really normal per se. Like the stigma is still there that okay, I don't want to go near that person. Like I don't want to be near someone because you never know. But people are allowed to go back like to work. People are allowed to go back to the shops, and life can be somehow compared to the normal way of living. And that's such an amazing thing to see.
So like with your work, with again, wait. So with your work, what is it that you do exactly?
Okay, so what I do is really I write press releases and
Mm-hmm.
then we send that over to publications and radio stations so that they could interview the artist or maybe feature the artist. That's what I do.
Okay, so I guess in that sense, like in terms of the interviews, like you're doing this right now over online, so that's
Hmm.
kind of in a way what I noticed was with the whole pandemic, like it forced me, for example, to start doing this. Like
Yep.
prior to the pandemic, I would have never even
You never
considered.
thought.
Yeah, like I never even liked using Skype before. That whole thing. Like I never really talked to
Guess we all have to
people.
adapt.
Exactly. Like, so, but in terms of what I was thinking, like, so in most of the world, there's still no live gigs, right?
It's I think live gigs are still not allowed since it's a big mass gathering. But a crowd of like 100 people is already okay in Australia. The last time I
Mm.
checked.
No, what I was curious about is like, what are or would you know of musicians or artists who are doing interesting things online now? Because so the reason why you have a live gig is in many ways that is one of the best ways to
Show
appreciate
yourself.
music, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, show yourself to market yourself to an audience, but at the same time it's the best way as a listener, one of the best ways to appreciate listening to music. There's especially if you're in a group of people with like a
Hmm.
hundred, 1,000 people, whatever it is, all vibing
Hmm.
to the same sound essentially. And how have musicians kind of adapted in such a way that you can't do that anymore? So do you know
Yeah,
anybody who's doing anything interesting?
yeah, I actually know of two, and these are two international acts. They're based in the United States. One is Tory Lanez, and one is Travis Scott.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so Tory Lanez, he actually did a really interesting thing. It's called Quarantine Radio. And what he does is he plays a bunch of songs and then he has celebrities come over on his show. And he's a very good showman, so it's very entertaining. And he actually broke Instagram live records when he had that. I think the last record of like the most amount of people in a live show, like a live Instagram show, was 150,000, and that was held by Taylor Swift. But then when Tory Lanez started this thing he called the Quarantine Radio, he had over 200,000 people watching his Instagram live at that certain moment.
What was it? Wait,
And
so what was he doing exactly? He was hosting a show and then playing
mhm,
music?
yep, he was
Basically the radio.
yeah, basically radio. And then he has, as a musician, you have a network of other musician friends. So he was connected to people like Drake, DMX, and then he had them over in his show. And then the fans of those artists would just go to his live show. So you'd have their numbers already. And
What do you mean by you have
mhm,
their numbers?
okay, so let's just say that, like for
What do you
example,
mean by
Drake,
you have their numbers?
like Drake has a certain number of fan base. Like let's say he has a million fan
Ah,
base.
okay.
Yeah. And then the fan base of Drake goes to your show, and after that they go check out his music. So
Uh,
that's what made it so interesting. Okay, I think you may have cut off.
Mm. And
Hmm.
what about yeah. I think the connection is a bit on and off. What about Travis? So
Trav,
he was getting like other he was getting other artists into the show, and then the other artists, they'll connect to their fan base and then get them to watch
hmm
the radio show as well. Oh,
Yep.
okay, that's interesting.
So it was one of the
Yeah.
very it's actually actually coined the smartest move in quarantine. Like a lot of news outlets in the states, as I was reading their articles, they said that it was one of the best move to do in the quarantine season right now.
Mm. And then
And
what
with
about Travis Barker?
oh, Travis Scott, not Travis Barker.
Travis Scott.
Yeah. Okay, so I think you may know of the game called Fortnite on the PC. It's a very
Yeah.
popular game. Maybe your kids play it. Do
Well,
you know
no,
that?
but yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Travis Scott actually partnered up with Fortnite to hold the show inside the game itself. Can you imagine
Okay.
that? Yeah, so he had this whole event set up on the Fortnite is really like it's a battle royale game, and then you have people. I don't know really how to explain. I don't even play it myself, but for that moment, I just played it since I wanted to see what Travis was up to.
Mm. So what? They had like a real concert there.
Yep, they had a real concert inside the
So
game itself.
so the game, as I understand it, is you have a
Hmm.
character and it's a world, and you can walk around. You're supposed to shoot
Yep,
other people.
yeah,
So
that's exactly it.
yeah. So I assume like they went to this area where you can't shoot other people, and
Hmm.
then they all just you just hung out with your avatar, and then what? Like they watched like a screen in game.
They watched like this big hologram of Travis Scott, and it was really big. And then everyone was just you had your emotes available, and you could like hold up the mic like that. That's it was it was a fun experience, honestly.
Like a virtual concert.
Yeah, it's a virtual concert, and it was in the game itself. And then
Oh, that's cool.
it was a way to catch gamers, and it was also a way to draw the fans of Travis Scott into playing the game itself. So it was a very good marketing move.
No, that's cool. Like, that's why, like I noticed, with the lockdown, we're forced to really
Adapt.
kind of think and adapt and think out of the box. Just think of different
Hmm.
ways to reach people, but no, uh, and I think that's the very important, especially with like music, because music,
Hmm.
here in Cebu, I know you played a couple of live gigs here, I'm sure,
Yep,
right?
I
And
have actually.
yeah, and that's just something that's probably not happening in the next year or so, probably, right?
I guess so. I think you're. That's a sad fact, but we'll have to live with that.
Well, again, I don't know. I think it, I know that like a lot of musicians, for example, they earn a lot of their income through live gigs,
Hmm.
and with that not happening now, I don't know, how does that work out to like for like musicians or artists where they don't have live gigs now, but how do they earn some sort of income in this
In this
environment?
pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you have to think out of the box. And another source of income for artists as well is through streaming, which is through Spotify. I
Mm.
think you've used that, and yeah, so we really just have to, I guess, gain our income from that, and then I guess like people like me, I tried doing some jobs there, which are related to music also, and that's another way for me to earn my income, which is still related to music.
Even jobs in music, you mean?
Yeah, like music that's as I mentioned, music PR, A&R, and some other things as well, writing features as well.
Yeah, that's what I noticed, by like I noticed with like are, are you still like 19 or something?
Yeah, I'm still 19.
All right. So I noticed with your generation, right, that you guys are just a lot smarter in a way than we were
Hmm.
back then. Like, uh, when I was 19, I mean, I can't. That's a screw up, basically. But you know, you don't. But back in my day, people we just didn't know what to do, right?
Hmm.
And there was no I'm gonna sound like a really old guy, but of course there was no YouTube, Spotify, and then there were radio stations, and the idea was okay, you should get your song played in the radio, and then there was always a thinking of if you get the right person to listen to it, then something can happen. They're the ones who will open doors. And then with your generation, it feels like that you guys have just figured out that for the most part, you can literally Google how to get to Spotify, how to put your songs on YouTube. It's it's right there. And I'm not sure. Are you still there?
Are you still there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I
Yeah,
think
I don't know if
you
it's
got
my
cut off.
connection or your connection.
Not sure as well. I'm actually. It looks good on mine actually. Yeah, but going back to what you were saying,
Oh, you're still there. Okay. So, like, you guys just know these things right away, ba? No?
hmm
Um, I mean, what have you, for example, like ikaw, like you've been able to put your own music on Spotify, right? You did it
yes, I have.
yourself.
I did it myself.
But how did you learn about all of that?
I just googled it actually, like how to distribute your songs via Spotify and Apple Music as well. But I think I just want to comment on what you said. Really,
Yeah.
you may think that we may know all the answers, but with the advent of the internet as well, another after effect of it is that what applies today could be wrong tomorrow. So information is constantly changing, and you also constantly also have to adapt as well.
Like, in what sense?
Like
Do you have an example?
okay, for example, this method could work for today, but for the next few months it could change, because that's with the advent of information, that information today is really a, how do you say it, it's like it's really just appearing so fast, and there are new technologies which are popping out of nowhere.
No,
And
but
yeah.
what
Mhm,
what I mean is that, like, uh you know kami, when I was in a band, like, we just I just we there was no hope, no, like, the idea of earning anything from it just wasn't there, but like, in at least for me, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest here. For me, it just wasn't there. Like, I it was just a really good excuse to hang out with my friends and just and play gigs, and we were serious enough at it that we made a lot of songs, and released an album, all that thing, but all that sort of thing. But and it's like, honestly, one of the most fun times of my life,
mhm,
and a time period that I'm really proud of. But at the same time, there was when you're not really getting anything out of it, at least in terms of monetary or income, you kind of end up having to focus on other things. And then with you guys, I noticed is that there's really, in a way, kind of like a playbook, you know
mhm.
get people to listen, uh, keep coming
Do
up with
gigs.
like quality music, and then if you get lucky or if you work hard enough, then it catches a lot of people's attention, and maybe their hearts as well, and all of a sudden you can make a living out of it. uh,
Mhm.
I was recently turned on to, this bedroom artist. Her name is, Sue Lee. Have you seen that?
Suli, is she Filipina or is he
No, I think she's American, man. Like, it's
American?
just this. Well, she's this. I think she's in America, and she's this girl who's. I think she looks like she's Korean. I'm not really sure, right? And then
Suli.
she's, yeah, 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 and she's just been making like music in her bedroom and shooting like music videos in her bedroom,
Yeah.
and
I think that's really that's what's happening with a lot of musicians today. That a lot of us are just making music in our bedroom through the software that we use,
uh-huh.
because it's so easily available to these production softwares that we use. It's called digital workstations. it's so it's so readily available on the internet, and anyone can learn it just by watching YouTube.
Yeah, yes. Do you do that? Do you do that for yourself?
I actually work with my producer. His name's Snare, like the instrument.
Okay.
And he makes my beats. That's what we call it, beats. And I have my mixing engineer. I think you may know him, Carlisle Tabanera.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so Snare makes the beat, I make the lyrics, I record it in the studio, and then I go to the mixing engineer. But some people, they don't even have to go to a studio. Like, you could have a home studio setup with just it's not even that expensive microphone, and then you could put out quality music just with that home studio setup, and that's what's so amazing.
Yeah, bye. That's the beauty of right now. Like
I
you
know.
see, that's what, so you don't do it yourself. Like you still need to go to all these people to help you out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I remember like kami when we did ours, we did it. I did it in this room actually, no, and then you just recorded guitars, bass. We had to go to a studio for drums and everything, but then we eventually got all the tracks and then sent it to a mixing engineer.
hmm
And but even back then, it was really hard. Now it's in a way easier in that sense. Like the equipment is just so much better.
Yeah, and
No?
it's so much cheaper as well as compared to the past, I guess. And so that's
Oh
why
yeah.
you have like, actually just go, when I mentioned studio, I just go to Carlisle's house and we record the songs there. And it's really just like a simple home studio setup where he has a microphone, and
Hello.
then, yep,
This is
am
the
I still there?
problem. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah, yeah. You go to Carla's house
And
and
then
you
we
record the songs there.
Yep, and we really just record it in his living room. It's not even a professional studio. Okay, I think you may have got cut off. Hello?
Hey Mike, are you still there?
Yep. Can you still hear me? I think you got cut off a bit.
Yeah, I don't know whose connection it is, man. That is the problem with this medium right now. You
Yep.
know, there's so many things to contend with. So you just go. Yeah, I actually think like a lot of times, like the studio right now. I mean, there's a big value in going to a professional studio and
Mhm.
everything. No, it's it. At least you can really just focus on the music and the people who you're working with. If you go to a professional studio, it's just after you mi- record your track, you're done, and then you can let them do their thing. But for a lot of people, like the home studio is a huge help, and then
Mhm.
allowing for a lot of quality music. No, that's what I say.
It's
Like this
like
girls, yeah. What?
it's like the home studio, the music you put out through a home studio and the music you put out through a professional studio. The difference in quality is really small, but it is noticeable. But it's presentable as well on Spotify, Apple Music. So yeah, if you're working with a budget, you can just go to a home studio and record your track.
Yeah, that's I think this time, but kind of like now that it's lockdown, I think people should just like if you're a musician or an
hmm
artist, I feel like you should take advantage and just kind of make as much music as possible. I think that's the
Yeah,
time. Now is the time to do it.
with
No?
so much time available in your hands, you could just write songs, and then maybe once the lockdown is over and hopefully we'll have events back, you could release your tracks and then hopefully have an event for it as well.
No? So now by where you've worked with you've worked with like other have you worked with like other publishers or events organizers here in Cebu?
I've
What's your
actually worked
experience there?
I've actually worked with I've tried setting up my own events back when I was 17. And then I also worked with Beat This PH.
Uh-huh.
It's a community of musicians who make their music through the computer software I mentioned. And we set up events here and there around bars in the city, like Trademark, Troy, and we've had really successful runs in the past. And we were supposed to have our third anniversary last June and have an event for that, but sadly, the lockdown happened, so we didn't push through with that.
Yeah, like kind of. So I was listening to your music, right?
Hmm.
And it does have like a club vibe. Like
Yeah.
it. I feel like it should be played in a club, right? And when that's not happening anytime soon, what have you been doing to like gonna move forward? 'Cause
Get.
I know you recently released Maria, right?
Yep.
And good song. Uh, like I said, I feel like you should be in a
In
club,
clubs.
right? But obviously, that was probably written way
Prior to
before.
the lockdown. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, no, and shot way before clearly because you're outside.
Yep.
No, but what have you been thinking about, like in terms of moving forward with your music?
Actually, it was amazing that in like last around, I think April or so, I was browsing through social media and I follow these club pages where I usually perform, and they've been doing live streams at home. Like the DJs have their home setup and then they live stream it and make it feel like it's still a club.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah, so
have you? So what? So
I've
what did you do?
I've sent out my music to those DJs that I know since I've had my songs played in a club before, and so I know the DJs. So I just said, hey, I got a new track, and I've noticed that you've been doing a lot of live stream shows, and I'd love if you could have my track played on your show.
Yeah, that's what, by that's really smart. No, that's really smart. I think kanaba. It seems to me okay. I remember when I'm gonna the way I when I have like these music interviews, by the way what I do is I end up talking a lot about my experience in
Yeah.
my, because really that's all I have, right? And I remember that back in the day, kami, like I mentioned, like we were in a band, we just wanted to have fun, right? And we
Mhm.
didn't really take it that seriously. But the one who did take it seriously was our lead singer. His name's Mark Cortez. And McCoy, that's what we called him. He did a lot of what you are doing, like really reaching out to people, really trying to, at the time he was the one who got us gigs. At that time, we wanted to play when we were still relatively new. We wanted to play the Outpost. That was a big goal for us.
Ah,
And then he got us that gig. And then after getting us that gig, we just played there all the time. You know?
that was
And
the outpost
that's
was a
really
place where.
important to just have somebody.
Oops, I think the internet got.
It's really important to have somebody do all that. What were you going to say?
Mhm. The outpost was a place where bands just gather around, right? If I've talked to some people about it, and they mentioned that it was the place to be if you were a band member.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's not around anymore. But yeah, there
Mhm.
was a lot of people like me who have fond memories of the place. No, you're too young to
Yeah.
have been there, probably. But anyway,
Mhm.
but the but I was saying it's like really important to have that person who like really works and reaches out to other people, because I feel like that's not in a way celebrated. You know,
Mhm.
they don't. A
Correct.
lot of people don't realize how much work gets to how much work goes into all of that, and it's clear that like you have been doing that also. Like you were just thinking about sending your tracks to DJs. Who else have, in a way, that's a lot like of what you do, I guess. No, the music PR,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. I just apply what I learned in my job, and I apply it to my own music as well.
And so who are like good people to reach out to? Like, let's say you want your music to get heard to all of these other people, or just get your story out there. Who you
Mhm.
usually what is like good avenues of people to reach out to?
Really, when it comes to the Philippines, as compared to Australia, they have multiple publications that do cover stuff related to music. But in the Philippines, we have less number compared to Australia. So for me, I've actually recently reached out to the Freeman, and they did a feature on me, and then I found that through the Thursday issue. It was it was a feature about my song, and I was so surprised to see that.
Mm.
And apart from that, apart from newspapers, we recently started our own website where in which we cover musicians that for Beat This PH, where we cover musicians that make music through computer software. So I do write the features there. I do I do like the write-ups there. I talk about the musician, I talk about their track, and then I talk about the music videos they put out. So it is a noteworthy thing that you should reach out to publications that do this. And as well as other places that you could reach out to are like radio stations as well. And if you're someone like me who creates music in the hip hop genre, then you should also reach out to clubs.
To like clubs mismo. Why? To get to play there, or
Yeah, that's actually it's such an amazing story to tell. Like when I was 17, I had my event in Morals and Malice. I think you
Mhm.
know that club.
Yeah, I've never been
So
there, but yeah.
so it was actually so funny that I just walked up to the club and then I said like, "Hey, I'm a musician and I want to set up my event. Do who is the right person to speak with?" And you can imagine the 17-year-old guy just going through there and like they were just shocked, like this guy looks so young. Like why is he talking to us? And
You're
then
technically not allowed to buy a drink there.
nope. And I was 16 that time since I did the event on my 17th birthday. And then it was so surprising when the manager there was actually the mom of a good friend of mine. So, and then she was like, "Oh, Trevor, you're like the classmate of my daughter." So I was like, and like, yeah, let's set up an event. And then I did that event and it was such a success. It was one of the first events that I set up myself. And another amazing story that came out of that night was I went to this club called Trademark. That's in Mandaue City. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, have
Yes.
never been there.
Also, I've never been there. So, yeah. So the owner is actually from San Francisco. So he's worked with a lot of the hip hop artists there in San Francisco. And so after that event at Morals and Malice, you know, I think it was the election period, so it was actually a liquor ban. So me and my friends were like, okay, let's transfer clubs. Like it's gonna be liquor ban by 12. Let's go to Trademark. I heard they don't apply the liquor ban there. So we went there, and I was in this get up, like I was in a suit, and I saw the owner at the DJ booth, and then my friends just dared me to like go ask him if you can perform, and then you just came from your show, so you're typically high on your ego, like
Yeah.
you're feeling pretty good about yourself. So I just went up to the owner and I was like, "Hey, I'm an artist. I'm a hip hop artist. My name's Trev, and would you be down to set up an event with me?" And to my surprise, he loved my guts. And then now we work closely together. We've been setting up events in Trademark, and I'm so happy that I actually had the guts to just reach out to him. It's actually one of the most amazing
I feel
stories I've
like
ever had. Okay, I think you got cut off again.
I feel like a lot of times that's what it takes, no? Kanang just have the guts to do it.
Yeah, but you see, a lot of the the problem with the mindset with a lot of musicians today is that with the advent of the internet, they just wanna put their music out. They don't want to network, and that's really a problem because your network as a musician is your net worth.
Yeah, so like how did you Tsunibay? Like I can't imagine at age 16, 17 I had the like, I can't imagine that you would have like for me I'm trying to think about when I was at that age, and when I was at that age I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really know uh I didn't really have any of that ambition. And
Hmm.
also at the same time, I don't think I would have had that confidence to just go up to
The club owner.
somebody and just talk to them and do all of that. So where did that come from? How did you,
How did
like
I get
even
that?
morals and malice, like even just that, like even just the morals and malice one, like because back when I was younger, it seemed to me like those were these places that I wouldn't understand and I didn't know how
Mhm.
they work. Now that I'm older, I know that okay, it's just some dude. It's just a person
It's just a
who
person.
yeah. But back when you're really young, you don't really know that. At least I didn't. No. Why how do you think that you got that in a way courage to do that? Or
I
did
think
you feel did you
mhm.
feel fear or not even?
There's always fear when doing that. Like, but you just have to put that fear back, and then you just have to go up to them and show them what you got.
Mm. So you didn't even think. You were just like, let's just do it.
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do it. That was all what was in my head.
Yeah, that is a really good trait to have, man, especially when you're young,
Hmm.
because you just you learn a lot of things a lot faster than everybody else. Because you're gonna put yourself out there, you'll make mistakes, but at the same time you learn a lot, and you're just taking one little step forward every time, right?
Yep.
No? So so right now you just released Maria. Did you had another song also?
Yeah, that was actually released under Warner Music, and that was under our project called the Beat This Boutique, in which that was a really good project since it was the first time that a major label reached out into the Visayas and Mindanao area to get some music from there, since you know that the Philippine music industry is really concentrated in Manila. And I think that you can relate to this, that back when you were a band in your day, I guess what was in your head was we need to play a show in Manila in the future because everything was there.
Yeah. So
So
now
it
they
was
reached out here.
Yep, and that's the first. It was one of the first steps for a major music label to reach out to the Visayas and Mindanao area, and it was a 12-track project in which there were 12 producers featured, each of them with their own tracks, own style. But what made them similar was that they all came from the Visayas and Mindanao area, and surprisingly, my producer was one of them, and so he picked me as his artist, and he was like, "Trev, are you down for this?" I'm like, "Of course, I'm down."
Which producers, Carlisle?
No, Carlisle, he also had a track there,
Hmm.
but it was at a different artist, but it was with my producer, Snare, Francis
Snare,
Snare.
Snare. Okay, okay. Francis Snare.
Yep.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was the track I recently released last March. And yeah, so far it's another thing to add to my resume as well that I have a track with Warner. So that's what I try to do as well. That's what I try to build up my resume. I try to build up my achievements as an artist, and hopefully in the future when I present myself, I have a lot under my belt.
Hmm. Is that? I'm curious, by. So you mentioned like because you were right that back in the day, like kami, the
Hmm.
idea was okay. If you want to actually do this for a living, you need to go to Manila,
Hmm.
and there were a bunch of bands that did that, and some did really well, and then some just eventually flew back home to Cebu because some people make it and some people don't. Do you feel that you have to do that right now or
I
not?
actually, s- I actually still, I actually still feel that since Cebu, it's labeled as a music scene. It's still not an industry since as a musician, you still can't quit your day job you still can't support yourself just by your music career itself. So it's slowly evolving into the music industry, and I've noticed in the past months that major labels such as Viva, Sony, Warner, they've actually been opening offices here in Cebu. So they do see the potential in Cebu to become an industry, but right now it's still not, and it's still a scene. But hopefully in the future it does become an industry.
I wonder if this whole pandemic and then the subsequent lockdown kind of made that, where was that like a step back, no? I
Yeah,
wonder.
I think it did.
Yeah, that's kind of sad right now. Like, and that with there's really so many people affected by this, and and then and even the live events industry is super affected, and
Yeah,
not really anybody's talking about it. You know,
it's one of the biggest
the
industries that took a hit during this pandemic, actually.
yeah, for sure,
Hmm.
for sure. I mean, fortunately, if you are getting some income via the streams, via online, then at least but like that's like really small.
It's really small. I actually had a talk with other musicians as well, and I asked them what is your biggest source of income when it comes to making your music, and they mentioned that it's either your sponsored content, in which like brands do sponsor you, like Nike sponsors you or something like that, or your corporate events in which corporations get you to play a gig. Like, for example, a big corporation has a media party and they hire you. That's a really big payout as well. But when it comes to like smaller gigs, it's not that sustainable.
Yeah, but I can imagine. So like the band that I keep thinking about who does like a
Mhm.
lot of these media gigs will be like Bamboo or something.
Mm.
But I can't imagine that being enjoyable. You get what I'm saying?
Wh-
Like, I mean,
What makes you say
like
that?
you're
What
in
makes you
this.
say that?
I don't know. I'm from this. I don't know, dude. Like I'm from like I grew up in the '90s
Hmm.
where you like Nirvana and you had this anti-establishment
Ah,
thinking, and then I know that like the younger generation they just don't have that. It's just not there,
like that
right?
rebellious attitude.
Yeah, like more. I feel like you guys are much better at working or navigating that whole environment
Mm.
than we were. No, like in my time, like work. Oh, you do something like that. Oh, sell out na siya ba? Hindi na. Di na
Sell
pala
out, yeah.
and then that's not really a term now, right?
I think musicians have just accepted it that it's one of your biggest sources of income, and you have to adapt into the culture.
No, and then that's why I'm saying that your generation is so
Mm.
much smarter uh, for that. Like you guys are willing and more important, you guys know how to work along those boundaries, ba? No, and then it's just a product of you guys growing up in that situation.
Mm.
No? And I talk a lot with my previous bandmates, and we do one thing that we notice is the music in every generation kind of reflects the time. You get what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like,
Yeah,
and the interesting thing now in today's time is that everybody has a like when I was in high school, if you talk to dudes and by what do you listen to, they would name the same 10
punk like.
bands or
Mm.
whatever, or it's the same. But if I go to like your school and I'll talk to 10 different guys, they
It's
all
different
probably have,
artists.
yeah, right?
And I
Diba?
think I think I know what you mean by that. And it's actually coined as the fast food era of music. That music is like it's so the process of becoming an artist today is much more simpler than becoming an artist in the past. That anyone could do it. Like I think before, you to become this big artist, you really had to sign with a label because you needed to get those connections via a label. But now there are a lot of artists who are just going the indie route, and then they're still doing really good.
That's true. But can you
Mm.
talk more about that? The fast food era of music. I've never heard that before.
You've never heard that term. Okay,
No.
I actually have a really interesting example of that. Okay, so for example, I think you grew up in the punk era of music, right?
Sure.
Or
Grunge
like the
punk.
rock.
Yeah, yeah, the rock. Yeah, that time.
How
We had
long
like.
were mm,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
how long was like each song? Like how many minutes was it?
3, 4, 5 minutes maybe at most. Radio.
Okay, so radio friendly. Okay, so based on what you said that some songs would last up to 5 minutes, but now in this day and age, 5 minutes, that's too long. People's attention span is just too short.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's why it's called the fast food era of music. And I noticed, Sad, with with like a lot of punk songs or like rock songs, that sometimes you have a really long intro, and that's just the guitarist just playing his piece, and then that's to highlight the guitarist himself as well. But now you as a musician, okay, your way to capture your audience is just in those first 15 seconds. If you can't capture the audience there in those first 15 seconds, then they're gonna skip to the next track. And so your lyrics have to come in at around that time, like around 15 to 30 seconds. And I guess that's a result of really just streamlining the process of streaming. Because before, the way you used to consume music was via CD albums, right?
Yeah.
And how much was a
Yeah,
CD
yeah.
album before? Like 400 pesos, right?
400 pesos, 450.
450. So that's
Yeah.
a big investment. So you really had to like make the most out of it. But now, how much is a subscription on Spotify? It's just 400 pesos, and you have this act you have an access to like all the songs already. Like all the songs are available. So like why would I stick to one track when I can just skip to another one if I didn't like the first 15 seconds of that certain track. And so that's why
Yeah,
today it's really called the fast food era of music.
that's like the whole Spotify effect, yun. Ganang murag when the
Mm,
tracks are all there and all available, and you can listen to a lot of music and just not know who the artist is.
mm,
Uh, yeah, with just so many, so much music available right now. It's just so different. That's why, like, when I talk to like older musicians, there's part there's a level of like, oh yeah, I kind of miss the old days when we just listened
yeah.
to one CD or cassette tape over
Mm,
and over again. And like you would, if you liked music, you would, so I mentioned you listen to like the same bands or artists,
mm,
right? And you knew
mm.
everything about them,
You knew
like
all the
everything.
tracks.
Yeah, you knew all their tracks, and then like you'd research, you'd look at a magazine, you'd read about them, and then now it's just, now there's just too many. Like I remember talking to a younger guy also. I asked him, so what do you listen to now, by? And he gave me these bands, right? And I
Mm.
looked at them, and they're like super obscure, like ridiculously obscure bands.
Like
You know
what do you
who?
mean by that? Like a niche?
Like yeah, like you know, like bands that are getting like 1,000 listens a month, two
Mm,
thousand listens a month, and and then I was thinking, is it is there must be like a lot of kids, a lot of like younger people who just listen like that. Like they don't. It doesn't matter na who is like quote unquote popular na ba. You're
mm.
just listening to who you're listening, and then because you found them, and for whatever reason, this particular artist spoke to you, and this is what you're listening to. No.
I think the reason why that happened as well is like where do you get your music like where do you get the music you listened to before? The it's from your friends. Like you'd ask like, hey bye, what are you listening to? Oh, I listen to Nirvana. I listen to what other punk rock bands are there? Like um can you
Yeah, there
name
was
some?
yeah,
like
there's a actually my generation. There's a lot of bands that did not like uh, grow old well. Like you don't want to like. There was a Limp Biscuit. Like I don't want to listen to them
I think
anymore.
I've heard of them.
You know, you get what I'm saying?
Like
Um,
Papa Roach as well. I don't know if you know
Papa
that.
Roach. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I played Papa Roach in my high school concert.
Yeah, but going back to what I was mentioning, it's like you'd get it from your friends, and so
Yeah,
you'd share the same like music taste. But now it's so easily available on the internet. Like you go to YouTube, you click one song, and then there's the related artist. You click that, and then oh, I like this artist. So you don't your source of the music you listen to is not is much wider. Yeah, you get what I mean.
yeah, for sure. No, no, I
Mm,
totally understand. Like that's why now that's why like that's why when I talk to younger people like you, younger musicians, I kind of want to get a sense of how they listen to music because it's
Mm,
very different compared to how we used to listen to music. And I'm sure it's very like my musical habits is super different from my parents' musical habits, right? And then that's just what's going to happen. And I just want to make sure that one of the reasons why I like to talk to younger artists is I don't want to be the old guy saying, "Oh yeah, mas nindot man to namo before kay niya ba?" Like I want to get a sense of how you guys listen because every generation is different and every generation is important in their own way, right?
mm.
No, so how do you listen to by?
You know, I just want to comment on what you were saying. Really, I think there was much more time, effort placed into creating tracks in the older age. Like I think that way as well, but many of my contemporaries might not think that way. But in today's era, we call it like it's not really the album. The time for albums is not now. It's more of like a singles game because of people's attention span. So people just listen to just one single. Like that's our listening habit now. And I really observed this. Like one artist we were working with in Australia, he released an 18 track mixtape. And do you know what a mixtape is? Or
I assume I know what it is, but now that you're asking me, I'm not, what do you mean?
yeah, a mixtape is like a less professional album. Like it's
Okay.
something that was compiled together, just a bunch of tracks put together under one project name without a theme surrounding it. Okay, so back to this artist we were working with in Australia. He released an 18 track mixtape, and the amount of attention he got for that mixtape was just equivalent to another artist releasing just one single. So imagine this, okay? Put them side by side. This artist placed in the effort to create 18 tracks, while this artist created one track and placed less effort compared to that artist who did the 18 track mixtape. But they have been getting the same attention. Do you see the difference in it? Like in the listening habits of people. And in that mixtape, people just listen to one or two tracks, and then after that, they go to the next artist. And that's going back to what I mentioned, that this day and age is really the fast food era of music. We consume music at such a fast pace that we can't really have the time to enjoy an album or like really just let it seep into you.
Kaya ba? But when you say like fast food era of music, what also what I can't stop thinking about is so considering that there's so much music out there, how do you stand out? Like how do you differentiate yourself from just other artists? Diba?
And
Or I guess that's the million-dollar question.
that's what me and my other music my friend who's also in the industry, we were talking about this, like how do you stand out. And today really the way to stand out is content is king. You have to be putting out other content which are not related, like which are somehow related to your music, but that could be like a vlog. You always just have to be there, like you have to be everywhere.
Mm,
So I was even thinking, like I remember going up to you back in the DTI conference. That was
yeah,
around September, I think, or November was that.
I forget. But I
Yeah, but
remember that.
I remember you were with your family, and I had that idea in my head actually, like content is king. And so another idea that was floating in my head was really just starting a podcast, because starting a like creating a podcast is just like you could record it for an hour or so, and you could put it out in a much faster pace compared to creating a track. So when you create a track, you have like a 3 month gap from one track to another track. Well, a podcast, you could do it on a weekly basis, and that enables you to constantly have content than just your music itself.
Yeah, do it, but it's honestly it's pretty easy to do. I mean,
Really, you can say that.
oh yeah, but like it's not. I'm not like yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, obviously there's preparation involved and there's a
Mm,
level of keeping people engaged and that whole thing and trying to not make a fool of yourself because people have done that as well. But in a sense, it's not that hard. It's a lot easier than making a track. That's I'll tell you that. No.
See, and that's what I really mentioned, that if you do have content other from your music, that enables you to just be there on social. You have your presence there just always, and people are always just reminded of you. Like you put, like I noticed another artist as well. He was doing vlogs, and nah, not really my thing. I'm more of, I guess the podcast is more of my thing as well. But me, what I try to do is actually just write features, and I constantly put that on my social media as well, just for people to remember that I'm still here, I'm still involved in the music scene, and yeah, that's also another way for me to connect with other artists.
Mm. Yeah, do it. Just you can do the podcast by. It's you already have a phone, and then you don't have to meet people because you're really not supposed to right now.
Yep.
But you just do it over somebody. You just do it online, and then I think like I noticed some artists doing that, or I know like Cookies has been doing like some podcasts. I think with his friends.
Oh, was it with Fonzie or
I
I?
don't. There was another one that he did. I didn't recognize the names. I just saw it online. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And then like that other artist that I recently discovered, her name's like Suli. Like she'll do
Mhm.
like vlogs.
Yeah,
Like a YouTube channel, and she'll just vlog on it because she's not always releasing music.
and
No.
so that's what I was talking about. Like, as an artist, you also have to adapt to the influencer lifestyle. And if you notice with influencers, those who are constantly doing vlogs, their content is almost regular. Like they have vlogs put out on a weekly basis or daily basis. And maybe sometimes being an artist, you're more just like, you just want to be in there. Like you don't want to expose yourself too much. Like you just want people to know you through your music, not through your vlog. But I guess with today's game, you just have to adapt to it.
No, that's true because as I mentioned back in the day,
Mm,
that was our attitude. We just wanted, you know what? Screw everything else. We just want people to listen to the music, and we're just gonna have fun along the way. And uh, we didn't really care too much about everything else. No, but I mean, to be fair, uh, not that I don't want to talk about ourselves too much, but we did stuff like I remember we like I had a car and then I would drive it. We called it the white car sessions, and then like
mhm.
some our friend just had a camera, and then we just took a video of our singer playing acoustic guitar in the back while I was driving around, and we released it on YouTube. And back then it seemed like a really fun innovative thing to do, and now it feels like it's an obvious thing to do. Like now you
That's
should be
you should be
probably
doing that.
doing versions of that somehow.
Yep, you're correct with that. And I was also talking to my industry friend. He mentioned that
Mm.
the
Have
really
you
the
been
right.
so it so what
Mhm. Oops, I think you got cut off again.
yeah, you're talking to your industry.
Industry friend, right? You still there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was talking to my industry friend, and he mentioned that as an artist, you should have about 10 posts related to your release, like 10 content posts related to your release, whether it be a vlog, whether it be a music video or something like that. You can't just do one post in which you say, "Oh, my song is out." That's not gonna work today anymore.
Mm.
Mm,
So like related, so in a sense nga basta always somehow pointing to the music. So okay, here we are on Spotify, and then another post is, oh, this is also our music video, and then another post is like, I don't know, lyric video or
yeah, something like that. But with me, what I'm trying to do is really just be on publications as well. I've been reaching out to
Mhm.
publications in like to the rest of the world, and I recently got on a magazine on the US, a US based publication, and so I've been posting that, and then the next day I post something as well. And another really big game changer today in the music industry is TikTok. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I can't get into it.
I'm not about TikTok. I do not like TikTok, but I was talking to my industry friend again, he mentioned that TikTok is really part of the promotional game you play as an artist today.
Well, like I can't. I tried just looking at it, just looking at the feed, and
I feel you, man. I feel you.
I was like, this is not for me.
I
This is
know.
not gonna work. I tried even like looking for like quote unquote serious people. No,
There's not.
no, like yeah, no, like I remember looking at it and then I saw one of the mayors in Manila, one of those young mayors has a TikTok. I forget who.
Was it Isco Moreno
Probably,
or
yeah, yeah. And I was like, oh, I wonder what he posts. And then it's him dancing. I'm like, oh man,
oh my
like
god.
this is like, a serious person. But okay, yeah, this is part of his hustle.
It's part of his. Yeah, but really when it comes to TikTok, it's really just part of your promotional game as an artist. And as you notice with distribution platforms that we put our music throughout, TikTok is already part of it. Apart from Spotify, Apple Music, apparently TikTok is already part. And my song is also on TikTok. So if anyone wants to make TikToks about it, go ahead.
Yeah, there's like monetization there, diba?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed that. Like, we started using CD Baby for like the first time, like a few months ago. I'm like, oh, cool. This is easy. This is really easy to do.
And
No?
you paid about like 700 pesos, I think, to get your track up.
Yeah, I forgot what it was, $15 but or something.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. No. And
Yeah, but
yeah, I mean, like it's nothing.
when it comes to these distribution platforms, really, your goal with these is just to get your music everywhere. TikTok, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. They even distribute to YouTube as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I tried like so we released the track on CD Baby, and
Hmm.
then it went on Spotify and everything. And then I had a podcast, and in the end of the podcast, I was like, "Oh, and now we're releasing a new track. This band that hasn't played in 10 years, whatever. But we're releasing a new track, and then I just played like the first 10 seconds, and then
Hmm.
I got an email from I forgot who it was, CD Baby or YouTube, and like,
You
oh,
got
you're
copyrighted.
yeah, 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 no, but I got an email as the artist, as our band saying, oh, they
Mm,
used your music, and it was just like a notification. So you
mm.
will get, I don't know, monetization, whatever from it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like you don't have to do anything now. You just put it up on that CD Baby, and then they do all of that legwork for you. It's
And
it's
it's really so convenient now.
I know it's so amazing. Like in to me, an old person, it's
Yeah.
amazing. you know, yeah, man. Anyway, we've been talking for over an hour. I'm really happy to connect, by like I'm glad that you reached out and we can talk. I'm
Hmm.
always like talking to younger artists, and I know I learned a lot, like in terms of how to how to get your music out there, and in terms of like the hustle, like what you're doing is you're really reaching out to people. It's not enough to just put it out there, but
Yep.
there's some strategy involved, no? And where can did I miss anything? Anything else you want to add?
I guess that's all of it.
Yeah, man. Like what you recently released Maria, right? Is that what you're promoting right now?
Yep, that's my recently released track called Maria. And you can find that on my Spotify, which is at Trev. And then you can also check my social media out for further information. That's on Facebook, it's at Trev Said Music. While on Instagram, it's at Trevor Sederiosa. And on Twitter, it's at Trev Said. And on TikTok, if you're into that, it's at Trev Said Music.
All right, man. It's good talking to you, huh? Good talking to you.
All
Hopefully I
right.
will see you in the flesh in the future one of these days.
And
Okay.
I'd really like to thank you for having me. It was such a great conversation, and yeah, I hope the music industry does recover, and I do see you in one of our events as well.
Yeah, man. I hope so too. All right. I'll see you. Okay. See you, man.
All right. All right. See you, man.
All right. Good to have you.
Thanks again.